Welcome to Late of the Rings, a podcast dedicated to Lord of the Rings the card game. My name's John, and here's my co-host. Do not take him for a conjurer of cheap tricks. It's Emery.
And yet again, I'm trying to help you, John. I'm not trying to rob you.
Yeah. Well, where's my wallet?
No, I'm trying to help, just trust me.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm all right. We're recording again on schedule, and and I'm very pleased about that. But yeah, it's good. And have you been up to anything nice in this short time away?
Oh goodness, what have I been up to? Well, again, not to dwell too much on the whole coronavirus thing, but yesterday here they opened up the shops again. And things like, for hairdressers, so you can get a haircut and all the rest of it. No, it hasn't made any difference to my life. I've not ventured out yet. I got used to living this kind of underground life.
Yeah.
Apt for this podcast, I think. So that's good. I think things are starting slowly to get better. But apart from that, what have I actually been up to since last time? Not an awful lot, really. I've been making some more music.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still not fit for human consumption, I'm afraid. So at some point, I'll present something as a promise stroke threat
I was
to the listenership.
I've been slowly rewatching Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I'm sort of doing it very much in like, an hour here, an hour there. And I just watched the part in Minas Tirith with Denethor, with Pippin's songs not being fit for his halls, and I had a little chuckle, and I thought of you.
Do you know what got me about that? That song was clearly fit for his halls.
Yeah,
he's nailed that, hasn't he?
He really did. He hit it out of the park, didn't he? That one.
So apparently, again, this is my knowledge of the DVD feature extras. Mm-hmm. So apparently, he wrote that song.
What, Denethor?
Good old, yep. From his third album. What could this album be called? The Journey to Despair. I don't know. Or Songs for My Halls.
Yeah, Songs for My Halls.
Volume 1.
That very nice. Deck the Halls.
That's his Christmas album, clearly. Apparently he wrote that. As did, I think, I hope I get this right, I think Viggo Mortensen wrote the one which he sung as well, when he gets coronated the king. Coronated, is that the word? Crowned.
Oh.
Do you get coronated? You have a coronation, do you get coronated? It sounds wrong,
doesn't sound right. I don't think I've never heard that word before.
No.
That does not necessarily mean it doesn't exist.
The bit he got kinged. He sings a little song. I think he made that up as well, and I think there's another too. I think, if I remember this correctly, I think 3 cast members actually kind of were given a task or volunteered to write their own little bit. Oh, I'll tell you who it could have been.
Are there not enough songs in Tolkien's work? We went over this last episode.
No, but okay, wrote the melody.
Oh, okay.
The actual tune. He didn't write out the musical notation. Can you imagine? Oh my God! Can you imagine if Tolkien did his own version of musical notation? That's just opening a whole can of craziness right there, isn't it? Goodness. I think the other one may have been. I'm only saying this because it's a song I can remember from the film. Perhaps Eowyn's song, which I think she got some stick for her voice, but I loved the way she sung that.
Oh, yeah.
I thought she was awesome.
At the funeral of Theodred.
Yeah.
I love
that.
She belts it.
Amazing.
It's all very quiet and somber.
Yeah.
And then from nowhere, she just goes, boom.
Yeah, she's gone full Aretha Franklin.
No, I think it's more like some sort of metal. Like you always say, like Rohan are into their heavier stuff.
They're the rockers, yeah. Raw, gutsy. She won't be able to sing when she's 50 because her vocal
very guttural. Very guttural. Yeah. No, I genuinely love it.
Yeah, so do I. It was really perfect, wasn't it, for that? And in fact, that was a really beautiful line from the film, which I noticed got used in a bunch of other things afterwards, which was, that bit where it's that really beautiful scene when it's just Theoden and Gandalf.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how he's let down his forebears or whatever. And then he says, no parent should have to bury their child. Yeah. I love the fact that when he says that line, that's what triggers him off crying, basically. Rather than being all big and tearful beforehand. That was either really well directed, stroke acted, or whoever was responsible. That's fantastic. But I noticed that specific line got used in a bunch of other things, including, I remember happened to catch an episode of popular British daily soap EastEnders, which I don't even watch. I just happened to be somewhere when they were showing it. And they used that line in EastEnders. This poignant moment. It's like, hold on a minute, you've ripped it off of Lord of the Rings. And I know I saw it in a couple of other places. That got me thinking, I wonder whether that was originally from Lord of the Rings, actually, or whether it was for somewhere else. But I'd never seen it before. But anyway, long story short, I thought that's a very poignant moment. It's very beautifully done, I think.
Yeah. So you've been making some music then?
Yeah.
I was just reading that and thinking, how did we get onto this? And I clawed it back. I clawed back the memory from a couple of minutes ago when you said you've been making some music.
And you've been watching Lord of the Rings?
In small parts. Well, actually.
In real time. You're going to take 13 months.
To the day.
Please don't include the flashback scenes or you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
You watch the opening bit, then wait 1,000 years.
Well, what have I been doing? I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I started preparing my garden for spring. And I don't mean like gardening. I mean, I don't do that bit, but I mean like uncovering the furniture where I'll be sitting to drink.
No, wait, hold on. How could you have made... Please continue.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we had weather here of, 20 degrees, 22 degrees. That's Celsius for our American listeners. People are going, that's freezing.
What's that, like 70 or something in Fahrenheit?
Oh, it
Something
must
like
be
that?
at least.
It must be.
And it's like, oh, this is going to be very pleasant. And we had a good couple of days of that. And since then, it has done nothing but A, rain, B, sleet, C, snow.
Obviously. How have people not learned this? Okay, right. This is what happens. This is what happens here anyway. You have winter. It's rubbish. It's cold. It's wet. We don't get like even decent winter. We don't get like big snow and, so you can do all the fun things, generally a bit naff. And then what happens, it starts to slowly get a bit better and then it goes back into the... And then suddenly you'll get this beautiful... few days or a week, whatever it is. And then it's the typical thing. I think it's a British mentality. Springtime is upon us. Let's wear our shorts and T-shirts and go outside and let's uncover all of our garden stuff and put it all up. But every single year, you get that nice bit of weather, and then you get the last bite of winter comes back one more time, and everyone every year goes, where did that come from? And do you know what it is? To use Lord of the Rings as an analogy, you know when Gandalf, the famous, you shall not pass, and he breaks the bread, Balrog falls down. I'm talking about the film, obviously, not the book. And off he goes, down into the pits, end of Balrog.
Yeah.
Springtime is here. And then suddenly out of the dark, he just flicks that whip up. It goes around Gandalf's ankle and then brings him down. That is the last bite of winter coming back for spring. So wait for that, then announce that spring is here and get your...
Yeah.
But you won't, because nobody does.
No. Instead, all I've been doing is staring out into the garden, looking at my furniture, getting snowed on. Going, well, that's probably why I covered it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is. Yeah, it was a bit of a shocker, wasn't it? Big fat snowflakes as well, aren't they? They're massive. It's like, what's going on here? But so how's your rewatch been? Have you been enjoying it?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And have you been watching? So you've been watching extended version.
Yeah, extended version. Well, actually, it was when I started Return of the King, which was actually I've really only been dipping in and out. I must admit, but I started watching Return of the King, and I got quite far in. Faramir had returned to Minas Tirith from Osgiliath, and it was like, well, okay, well, the Battle of the Pelennor Fields is coming up any minute now. I hit stop for that session. I still had 3 hours and 8 minutes remaining.
Yeah, but you got to consider that an hour of that is the credits at the end.
Absolutely, yeah.
I did one of those stoic things when I first watched it, which is like, I'm going to watch this all the way to the end, including the credits. So you're sitting there, and these credits come for an awfully long time. You're thinking, Jesus, like the whole soundtrack is like condensed into the credits. And then they have a thing where they have every single member at that time of the Tolkien fan club would get their name in the credits.
That's only on the extended editions, but oh my
well,
goodness.
obviously, that's the bit that extends it the most. That's 35 minutes of footage right there. And I'm just watching all these names. I remember I was watching it with my dad because he was a bit of a completist about it as well. It was way back the first time I watched it, the extended version. And we just ended up playing games about people's names and what names were going to come up. There's going to be a Khan. How many Khans are there going to be? 4. It was 6. That's how ridiculously bored we got watching the credits.
Well, you could play some pretty good drinking games with that.
Oh, God, I love the way your mind went straight there. You're so right, you kid. How long does this drinking game last? 45 minutes. Yeah. Oh, goodness. So you got another couple of weeks of that.
No, but I am enjoying it. I mean, this is the 20th anniversary of The Fellowship of the Ring, the film, obviously.
Oh, crumbs. Are you serious?
I'm serious. And it is super impressive how well these films stand up. I mean, it's...
Yeah. You think... what came out in 1981? And you think
okay, that threw me.
No, but that's the difference in time. Obviously, 20 years before, the advancements made in that time.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to list every single film that came out in 1981. But it really has. I think one of the things, I think we might have talked about this way back when, is, I think generally we're not huge fans of CGI as a rule. But, if it's used correctly in, the correct context and all that, it can be great, and sometimes it's the only way to really pragmatically solve a problem. I think they really kind of nailed it.
Yeah.
I think they just really got it. I don't know what, because CGI technology has obviously come on leaps and bounds since then. There's something about it which still kind of looks more real than some of the newer stuff, which is really odd. And maybe, I think it could be to do with the way they keep the camera more still rather than have it. You know how a lot of people try to hide CGI by shaking the camera around and da-da-da-da. I think by not doing that, I think it kind of works better. I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Yeah,
on that,
but I also think it is a blend of how they use the CGI along with practical effects. They don't just go full on, we're going to make this whole scene CGI. It's like, I always... Because, going back to those behind-the-scenes discs from that original DVD, I remember one very clearly about Orthanc and how they built that all as a model. And even it was all a model when the orcs had turned it into kind of the factory, the Uruk High factory, and they and all
factory, Uruk High factory,
and then they had all that scaffolding and all the fire pits where they were making the armor and breeding the Uruk High, which is a artistic license which will allow Peter Jackson on that one. And that was all a model when the Ents attack it with the last the last march of the Ents. That's all a model. And I remember when they break the dam and all the water comes in and basically floods Orthanc. Well, I remember, and I apologize if this now ruins the scene for you forever, but I remember they showed they showed how this is done, how they get that water effect with miniatures, and they use salt.
Oh yeah, I think I saw
So
that.
they use tons and tons and tons of salt because it really looks like foaming water when it pours. But now it still looks like foaming water to me. But then every so often when I'm watching that scene, just little thoughts in my head go, "It's salt, it's salt," and I go, "Oh, I can see it's salt," and now it goes back to water again. But but it's beautiful because there is that sort of mixture. They didn't use real Ents.
No Ents were harmed in the making of.
So obviously they're all CGI, but it all blends brilliantly together, you know. And also, I love that. There's one bit in that scene which stuck with me from the moment I saw it in the cinema to every time I rewatch it. Is where there's that Ent that's on fire.
There's the one on fire, and he
puts himself out.
Yeah, that was my bit. I knew you were going to say that. It's awesome, isn't it? What am I going to do? Oh, there's water here.
I'll put myself out.
Cool off. He really caught fire quickly.
Yeah.
For an old wood Ent. wood Ent? What other kind of Ents are? Yeah, I generally love the Ents. I love all of those. I love all the scenes with the Ents, including and that whole thing of I think you're right. I think building all those models, doing that thing of people took the mick out of it a bit where they really went overkill on things like people who just made chainmail for 2 years and I actually think that somewhere on some subconscious level all of that stuff adds up.
I think so indeed. I think it absolutely matters. It absolutely matters that the whole ethos was that they didn't want anyone watching this film at any point to be able to say, I've got one of those.
Yeah, right. Even a horse.
And that could have been anything. A bit of clothing or a goblet or a table. Everything had to be unique.
And yeah, absolutely. So when you're watching it helps. I think also it will impart something on the people involved, not just the actors, but the people making the film as well. That you're creating this fantasy world and you want it to be as real as possible. It has to be real. Yeah. You're watching something real, and they totally succeeded in that. And I think I remember, again, Viggo Mortensen talking. Well, I think it was Peter Jackson talking about him. That the way that he really got into the character was through his sword, and apparently he used to go everywhere with his sword, like restaurants and things with his sword. Oh, you bring that in here? Well, I'm acting in. Okay, and he used to have it in his front seat of his car. Apparently, it's a genuine sword, but because it was so amazing and so real, it just was a real beautiful sword. Obviously he connected with that, and that was a way for him to characterize himself. So it absolutely does make a difference, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I absolutely adore the level of detail they went to with creating all the sets and the props. And I mean, actually, when I started the rewatch, one of the first things that struck me, because I hadn't rewatched it for years, actually, but one of the first things that struck me were the costumes. And it just blew me away because, I mean, it's this new transfer of the film that they've done, and the detail is exceptional. So,
you're watching that one?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet. Okay.
So, it just blew me away because, like you say, you see all the chainmail. And because we know the history that all the chainmail is handmade and all this thing, it's like when you first see Boromir, you first see Aragorn and their costume you're wearing and the level of detail and you know what's been put into it, it just elevates it above everything else.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's you don't have to do that for every movie you ever make, right? I think there's certain ones where if you can, you should go to that level. And this is certainly one of them because it was so delicate. Yeah. And I think to do anything less than that it's just going to in some way just cheapen it. I think they didn't leave any stone unturned, and it meant that they made it as best as they possibly could have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what they saw their mission as, I think, which is fantastic. So good film. I won't ruin the end for you. Keep on watching.
Oh, thank you.
So, what else you been up there?
No, well, we've been playing a bit of the game. And,
yes.
Well, actually, no, before we get on to talking about our podcast and the game and the adventure that we're going to talk about, I would just like to say that this episode, more likely than not, just sort of looking at the date now and how long it will take to edit and get released, will be our anniversary episode.
Oh, yeah, right.
So how about that?
Oh, God. Where's that year gone?
Oh, yeah, don't start thinking about that. This was meant to be a celebratory statement.
What have you been up to the last year? No. Oh, that's fantastic. We'll have to have a later for rings cake. I don't know. Cake of the Rings.
Nice. Yeah, so I just thought I'd mention it. I mean, there's not a lot we could do.
So,
not a lot we could do to celebrate.
Happy birthday to us. We're not 11-1. We're just
one.
Not even 71. We're just one.
But if you have been listening for a year, thank you ever so much for your support, and well done for sticking with us. And here's to the next year, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Thanks to our listenership. If you have stuck with us, that's it's kind of like watching the movies. The credits. It's gonna keep on going.
Okay, moving on to today's episode. As we mentioned last week, the next 3 episodes are all going to be quest episodes. So we are going to start talking about the quests which come with the first deluxe expansion, which is Khazad-dûm, and that first quest, which is Into the Pit. So if you are avoiding spoilers, or if you haven't played that yet, and you want to wait until you hear our thoughts on it, probably best just to skip this entire episode. If you don't mind spoilers, or you have played it, we're going to start talking about it from now.
Well, guess what I have with me?
You've got the insert.
It's the insert sheet. But this is a different insert sheet to normal. This is the deluxe expansion. Larger insert sheet.
Got a bit of weight behind it.
Yeah. It's not messing around. I think it's probably just worth just having... I mean, it does have the normal kind of insert stuff about each quest, but it has got just a little bit of text beforehand about some new things which come along in this deluxe expansion. Well, I think, things that affect the game, I think, just going forward generally.
Okay.
So, yeah, it might be just worth having a quick look through this.
Yeah, jump into it.
It's just broken into a couple of sections. And the first one is just a component overview. So what do you get in a deluxe set? We went over, obviously, most of that last week. But then when it gets interesting, there's a little section called Rules and New Terms.
Oh, yeah. This is right up my street.
Yeah. This is the John section of the insert. Okay. So the first section under that subsection is encounter cards with actions. So it's encounter cards with actions. So it says an action on an encounter card in play can be triggered by any player following normal restrictions on triggering abilities. So we've seen actions already on hero cards, say, or on allies.
Well, all player cards, yeah.
And I think all this is simply saying is that there are actions which you do see on encounter cards for the first time.
I'm deep in thought now. I'm trying to think where they're going.
Yeah, I know. Same here, actually. I was like, was that not something that we had before? Or is that... I guess it's just pointing it out. Yeah. It's probably, if you played the game already a few times, you probably wouldn't even notice this suddenly turning up on encounter cards rather than just player cards. But it's just making the point, you're going to see it come up from the encounter deck.
Well, I guess the difference is that an action, even though it's on an encounter card, would be optional.
All actions are optional, right?
So you could choose to play an action which is on a encounter card, which that definitely hasn't come up before.
It says, following normal restrictions on triggering abilities.
Yeah, okay.
So, okay, and then the second one is last player. Some cards refer to the last player. The last player is considered to be the player sitting directly to the right of the first player. If there is only one player playing, then that person... And this is the important bit, really. You can always figure out who the last player is, If there is only one player playing, then that player is considered both the first and the last player.
Yeah, okay.
So any cards which say this happens to the last player, that is, if you're playing one player, that's you. You're the first player, you're the last player. Simple. Yeah. You probably figured it out, but it's just worth it.
I love the idea that there's some guy out there who, all the way through the first cycle, has been referring to himself as the first player whenever cards have targeted the first player, but then as soon as they see a card that says the last player, go, well, who's that?
And that guy's name is Jeremy. He's done it again. And then the last one is immune to ranged damage. And actually, this talks about a very specific card. And maybe it's actually worth not mentioning this now because this is a bit of a spoiler.
Okay,
actually.
then skip it. That's fine.
So I'm going to skip it.
Yeah, because that's not in this first quest, is it?
No, it's not. And again, this speaks to that thing of I don't like finding out about this stuff by reading an insert sheet. You know, I don't like when it gives away what's going to happen.
Sure.
It's not a big deal, but you know, I think you don't need to read it. I mean, it's called immune to ranged damage.
Yeah.
So, in fact, if I just skip the specific bit, what it says is immune to ranged damage means that characters participating in an attack via the ranged keyword are not able to deal damage to that enemy. So it's just exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
A particular enemy, you know, well, it can be on any enemy. If they're immune to ranged damage, if it says on the card, guess what? Yeah, so that's all it says. So they're all really self-explanatory, I think, but it does, you know, call them out specifically here. So what else do we have on the insert sheet? It says expansion symbol.
Ooh.
The cards in the Khazad-dûm expansion can be identified by this symbol before their collector number. And there's a picture of a double-sided axe. And it's that really tiny little symbol you get in the bottom right, which I think we mentioned ages ago. You know, we've seen the core set ones, had that kind of, was it like a star?
Yeah.
Or no, a ring, wasn't it? And I think for the first cycle, it's that little round, what is it, like a star or something? Anyway, it doesn't really matter, just to identify which cycle it's from. And then it says, note that the Misty Mountains encounter set is not used by any of the scenarios in the Khazad-dûm expansion, but will be used in the upcoming Dwaro Delve cycle of adventure packs. So you've got a whole chunk of cards which you won't use just in this deluxe, but they will be used in Dwaro Delve, as it says.
Well, see, this is interesting. Well, it's not necessarily interesting. But it is noteworthy. How about that? Because when I first started out collecting the game, I was a little bit confused. I mean, I soon found out this information online on the forums and things about how the cycles were built when it came to encounter sets. Like, we knew we got a bunch of encounter sets with the core set, and those encounter sets worked with the APs from Shadows of Mirkwood. But I had to sort of do a little bit of digging to find out, well, what happens after Shadows of Mirkwood? Do all the core set cards go away? And the answer, of course, is yes. So if you are at all confused by this, what happens is when you get to a new deluxe, basically all the encounters you've seen so far, you can put in boxes, hide them away until you're ready to play that cycle again. Your encounter sets start fresh. So your deluxe box is basically you'll get 4 or 5 new encounter sets, and they work in a very similar way to how they work with the core set. So you'll be seeing those encounter cards again and again throughout the cycle, mixed in with each AP's specific encounter set. So if you are at all confused about sort of how to buy this game, you know, because not everyone can buy it in order, just note you don't need to buy things in sort of specific release order when it comes to cycles, but you will always need the deluxe set before you can play the APs from each cycle, basically.
Yeah.
And that was interesting that it's noted, because I remember there was being one set that wasn't going to get used in the deluxe, and it's like, I'm being cheated. But of course, by this stage, you're already committed to buying everything that ever gets released for this game.
Is that how it works? Well, actually, it's funny you mention that, because I actually remember being really surprised when I got to this deluxe. I was like, oh, wow, so this is a whole new thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of think, oh, maybe these are self-contained. Is there really kind of continuity? But there is kind of continuity as well, because obviously you're building up your stash of player cards, which you read. But I was surprised when I first saw that, but it actually works really well once you start playing through.
It does, and also it gives it a lot more flexibility to allow players to miss an entire cycle if perhaps it's not in stock, or they're just not interested in going through Khazad-dûm. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to play the game going forward, so it keeps them self-contained. Now, I had an amazing revelation
Oh, hold on. Whoa. Do you want to talk about this on air?
No, I've been playing this game. Now, I think when we started this podcast 1 year ago, I think I said I've been playing for about 5 years. So now I must say I've been playing for about 6 years. Now, I have all my encounter cards kept in boxes. I keep all my player cards in binders and all my encounter cards in boxes. But even though I keep all the individual sets together, I'm still very particular to make sure that when I put together a encounter deck in order to go back and play an old quest, especially for this podcast, that I've got all the cards. So I have a spreadsheet, which I didn't make. I got it from Board Game Geek. Someone had put this together, which has all the encounter sets listed and how many cards are in each set. And I use that and I go through it and I cross-reference and I count the cards. And I make sure I've got all the cards and I'm not missing one. And it's a little laborious, but I am a stickler for those sort of things. And this is my revelation. If you look on an encounter card, underneath that encounter symbol, there is a little tiny number. And it says something along the lines of 7 of 13. As an example. And that means that in that encounter set, there are 13 cards.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were talking about the number at the bottom. I was like, hold a minute. This is in the core set, in like basic instructions, how to play it. I know about this. Surely John knows about this. I thought you were talking about that,
No.
But you're talking about just under the symbol in the middle of the card on the right-hand side.
Yeah, the actual encounter set symbol.
Wow. But
so if you are, like me, wanting to make sure you have all the cards per an encounter set, you can just count them.
Well. Hold your horses.
Down, Brago.
Because
Brago. Whoa.
Yeah. So, okay. So the first one I picked up happens to be 1 of 12.
Yes.
But
7 of 9.
That means... But that means there are 12 unique cards?
No, there are
set.
12 cards.
Okay, so there's another one which is exactly the same as this card.
Yes.
Yeah, so if there were 3 of these,
Yes.
there would be a 1 out of 12, a 2 out of 12, and a 3 out of 12.
Yes.
Ah, how cunning.
Yes.
These people have really thought of everything.
Well, apart from they insisted on using symbols for all the encounter sets, and some of these symbols become very, very similar. And it would just be very nice if somewhere on the cards they just wrote the name of the encounter set as well. But apart from that, I am very, very pleased to find this. It's only going to save me 2 to 3 minutes every time I play, but that's 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh my God, this is genius. So each card is completely unique. And what I've also noticed is, sometimes you have the orange circle around the symbol, and that's for...
If you want to play...
I've never tried this. Easy mode, right? Yeah. And you remove those. So this one I've picked up, and we'll talk about this card, but, because I looked for 2 out of 12, which is there, and that one's got an orange mark around it, but 1 out of 12 doesn't.
Ah, yeah. You don't want to make it too easy.
So, yeah, that's really cunning. So, again, flexibility. Oh, that's a lovely piece of design. Very good. Well, so well thought through, I think. Yeah, things like that do please me, I must say.
Well, yeah, it pleased me immensely. And then I thought, how have I not seen this for the last 6 years?
Yeah, and I wish I knew that. So I had one, and it wasn't this quest. It was a quest from the last cycle, where I played the quest, beat the quest, nice and easy. Boom, I did it again, beat it again. Fantastic. Move on. Went to put the cards away, and I've separated out each encounter set, and I noticed there was 1 card in there, and it wasn't a particularly bad card, just some bog standard kind of location, I think it was. But there's a part of your brain that kind of goes, does that really count?
You can't let it lie.
You can't unsee it.
No.
You can't just ignore it.
This is why I count them up every time I play. Well, not every time I play, but every time I put together a new encounter deck.
Put the deck together, yeah.
This is wonderful. I mean, I do feel foolish that I've only just noticed. And there are going to be people listening going, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a revelation to us, and everyone else is just like, "Geez, Louise." We're the people who've, I only noticed that it's got the artist's name underneath at the bottom throughout this when we were making this podcast. And why didn't I just at any point just look at one card, just look at everything on one card? You would have noticed all of this. You just small print, you just ignore it.
Yeah,
that's incredible. That's, you know what? I've also had a revelation. So thank you. John Forever Later. It's a catchy name, isn't it?
I'm already getting the badges made up.
Yeah. Right then. On that bombshell.
Yeah, I can't remember where we were.
So, I had just read the notes.
Oh yeah, so there are encounter sets. So there are new encounter sets in the deluxe expansion, and these are the encounter decks that we will be using throughout the next cycle, and one of which isn't used in the 3 quests that we get with Khazad-dûm.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on to the quest itself?
I think we better.
So, okay, I'm turning over the page to get to the scenario overview, which reads, there are 3 unique scenarios included in the Khazad-dûm expansion. Each is introduced along with a list of encounter sets for that scenario's encounter deck below. So, what are we doing today? Into the pit. So let us go into the pit, which is into the pit. Into the pit. Difficulty level 5. To be discussed. Okay, here's the text. The Flavor Flav text. The heroes enter the mines of Moria at the behest of the White Council, carrying an important message to Balin. Balin recently led a group of dwarves back into Moria to establish a colony in the ancient halls of his ancestors. He has not been heard from in some time.
Uh-oh.
It sounds like an ideal job for the guys who they sent off to Dol Guldur a couple of months back. Okay. So then it just tells you which encounter sets are used. Setup. So this is just going to go over what we're going to see on the card in a second on 1A, but it just says when setting up into the pit, players are instructed to remove First Hall and Bridge of Khazad-dûm from the encounter deck and set them aside out of play.
Yep.
These cards are placed away from the playing area and do not interact with the game until Eastgate is explored, which will add First Hall to the staging area. Exploring First Hall, then add Bridge of Khazad-dûm to the staging area. Now, this is... Do we want to... So, again, it's going really specific here, and we're about to come on to this anyway.
Yeah,
We're about to discuss this, but again, it's Jeremy.
It is, isn't it? It's really spelt out.
And I don't like it. I don't like the fact... I'm sitting here spelling it out myself on a podcast, but I'm assuming that most people would have played this and have come and know what's
Oh, yeah, no.
Anyway,
We cover ourselves in spoiler warnings.
Yes. But you don't want to read that on your set sheet. You can figure that out from the cards. Just read the cards.
Figure it out from the cards because it's written.
Yes. And then guess what the next one is? Cave Torch.
Oh, no. Well, actually, Cave Torch has a probably...
Yeah.
Yeah, go
okay,
on,
well, let's be open-minded. Let's read through it, okay? So it says Cave Torch. This scenario uses the Cave Torch objective card. The first player selects any hero to attach it to, and that hero will bear the Cave Torch for the rest of the game. If Cave Torch would leave play, either through a card effect or due to the hero it's attached to leaving play itself, then it is removed from the game. So that proves that when they say it, they're talking about the card.
Yeah, proven.
Rather than the character. Proven. That's objectively true. That's the latest one people use, isn't it?
Oh, I thought because it was an objective card.
That's probably what made it enter my head. Oh, goodness. Okay. When a card is removed from the game, it should be set aside and ignored for the rest of the game. Do not place any removed from game, in inverted commas, cards in the discard pile, as effects that bring cards back from the discard pile no longer interact with these cards. So don't put it in the discard pile, remove it from play.
Yeah.
So this is just talking about how to treat a remove from play card. I mean, yeah, I think we kind of know that.
Yeah, but we've seen... I do agree with you. I mean, I do understand that there needs to be a bit more fleshing out of the rules. as the game progresses, especially through the deluxes. But I do feel like we've seen cards removed from play already. I mean,
I think what's important, I think the important distinction for me is just if it's removed from play, is literally removed from play. There's no way it can come back. So even if something's in the victory display, it's kind of, it's not in play, but it's still not removed from play.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So things can still happen.
It is possible for cards to come back from the victory display.
Yeah. So if something's in a discard pile, if something's in the victory display, or if something is set aside, anything can happen with those. Yeah. But if something's removed from play, game over. You may as well burn it.
I just burn it, yeah.
Metaphorically, people, metaphorically. Okay. And then there are a couple more before we go on to the first quest card. So it says, immune to card effects. Now, I'm not sure if this is the first time we've seen this either, but it does say, the location East Gate has the text immune to card effects. Maybe it's the first time. I can't remember.
We've had immune to player card effects.
Okay. Right. Okay. Right. So it says immune to card effects. This means that Eastgate cannot be selected as the target of any card effect, and it ignores the effect of any card that would directly, which is in bold, interact with it.
Yeah.
Okay. The only way to place progress tokens on it is by questing. And once Eastgate is the active location, it remains the active location until it is fully explored. Even cards like, there's a card which is we're not going to see until we go into the so maybe I'll mention.
But is it an encounter card then?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's basically what it's saying. So we've had immune to player card effects. So we know that we can't, as players, actively affect that card. Right. But now we have encounter cards that could also affect it. And I think this is probably the first time we've seen that.
Yeah. So what it says, I'll just read it. It says, even cards like Dreadful Gap, which is an encounter card,
spoilers,
or spoilers, or Strider's Path, which we discussed before. So as you say, an encounter card and a player card would not be able to move it to the station.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, nice and so I think that probably is worth.
I think it is.
Out,
yeah.
To be honest,
you just can't do anything to this card. It has. You have to explore it.
It's immune.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then the last thing it says is about revealing enemies. It says enemies that are dealt as shadow cards are not considered to be revealed from the encounter deck.
Oh, that's interesting, because I think that was an early FAQ, actually, and they've obviously gone, well, this is quite important, we better put it in a rules insert.
And then it does go on to say something really specific about a later quest card as well.
Skip it.
Yeah. So
is it is it spoilery specific?
It says, and we can decide to edit or bleep this out, it says, enemies that are dealt as shadow cards are not considered to be revealed from the encounter deck. Fine.
Yeah. And
do not trigger the forced response on side 2B of the quest card, The Fate of Barlin. So
okay.
It's just being specific about this quest. So,
yeah, but that's not spoilery.
It's not spoilery, but
just,
I think,
again,
you don't want to, I think they could... I get what they're trying to do, because they're trying to explain the rules and they're trying to put it within the context of what you're seeing on the cards.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said before, maybe like a micro frequently asked questions at the end of this document might be useful rather than just spelling it out before you've even played it. You don't want to read it before you've played it.
Yeah, a simple start playing now. And then, okay, now I put the rules insert away. I start playing. Okay, and now I'm confused. I know that there's a frequently asked questions at the bottom of this. I'll have a quick look.
Yeah. Or you just have the headings. Like the headings are setup, cave torch, immune to card effects, revealing enemies. So you could just look at the heading that you want. You know, it's nice and bold. But anyway, whatever. That's just being picky there. But okay, so that's the that is all the insert sheet says about Into the Pit. All right. So I don't know how far into this we are, but shall we read the first quest card?
Let us venture into the pit.
Let's go. Okay, so finally, card 1A, entering the mines, and straight away you are drawn to a quite spectacular bit of artwork there.
It's something else, isn't it? Isn't it something else?
Just that huge door, and again, I think this is one of those ones which actually is helped by the monochrome version, in my opinion. I love that. So you see those two tiny figures entering this huge, ancient doorway. Fantastic, in the side of a mountain. Anywho's, what does it say? It says, "You have been sent by the White Council to Moria to deliver a message to Balin and his dwarven colony. No one has heard from him in a while." Doesn't sound in any way... Nothing. It's going to be fine. I haven't heard from him for a while.
No, but I did laugh out loud.
It's funny.
When I read...
Why does it say that? Just one separate. That's all a sentence says. It says, "You've been asked to go and see Dwight." Okay, fine.
Yeah, no one's heard from him.
No one has heard of him for a while. That doesn't sound ominous.
I will. I'm already going to jump in. I know we're only halfway through side 1A.
Okay, go on.
Now, what I like about this, and I really only sort of clocked this through this replay, is that we have been asked to do this by the White Council. Now, the White Council, I believe, and I might get this wrong, that's Saruman, Gandalf, Elrond. Galadriel, and Círdan. Like, Círdan's an ancient elf, which Círdan, I think, he's like really he's a real old boy. He's an elf of the West, and he's the shipwright. Círdan the shipwright, and he is the one who ushers everyone onto the boats, the Grey Havens. Yeah, and but that wasn't my point. My point is not that I believe that's who the White Council are. But what I like about the fact that it's those guys that have asked us to do this is, when I first played Khazad-dûm, I put together like a dwarf-centric deck. And in fact, I have done again, because we are very much going into dwarf zone. And dwarves obviously do fare well in the mines. You know, they're designed to do it. And I went very thematic with it when I first played it. And I didn't allow, just for myself, sort of unthematic characters going into the mines. I just wanted to play it through in that sort of scenario. But actually, if you think it through, that if the White Council is saying, "Hey, we've not heard from Balin for a while," they could be asking this of anyone.
Or they could go themselves.
They could go themselves. Well, actually, Gandalf came with me, to be honest.
yeah, but only popped in once in a while. Let's be honest.
So, but I like that if you actually think that through, because a lot of people get hung up. It's like, oh, well, why would the elves go into Moria, or why would even Rohan go into Moria? Well, perhaps that's who the White Council have asked this of. We've not heard from Balin for a while. Could you please go and check it out? You know, so yeah. I think it is still thematic to send anyone into the mines. I mean,
oh, totally. Yeah.
I mean, we'll come on to our decks later, I imagine, or throughout this conversation. But I did do a very dwarf-themed deck. But you'll like this. I didn't take Navi's belt. I
knew you would.
No,
I knew it.
I took one song, as I said I would, and I took the Rivendell Minstrel. So having read that, even though in my head I was thinking, why would a Rivendell Minstrel go to Khazad-dûm? And then I was thinking, well, Elrond's there. Perhaps he's sick of those songs. It's like, so Dane, could you take a load of dwarves with you and check out where Balin's at? You couldn't take this minstrel with you. The acoustics would be brilliant in there.
That's how he sold it to the minstrel.
Exactly.
How it really went was, Dane was like, so, Elrond, you coming? Gandalf? I'll send one of my best men.
Yeah.
I'll send one of my best men. Bloke comes along with a harp. Oh, God.
Here we go.
Okay. Yeah.
This isn't going to end well.
Just still playing. Well, could be worse.
So,
could be older. Who's your favourite?
Gléowin,
yes. See, you went 180 on Gléowin.
Yeah, no, I love Gléowin.
See, his music grows on you.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
He's not going to write big chart smash hits, but his album is one that you can listen to it time and time again over many years.
Turns out I've got a lot of time for minstrels.
Delicious. Minstrels is a confectionery here in the UK. Just want to point out. But you're right, mate. It is thematic, and in fact, well, maybe we'll come on to that when we discuss our quest. I went dwarf centric to this time round, and when I first tried this, well, it was first time I ever played the Khazad Dûm stuff. I tried to go dwarf centric to be as thematic as possible, and I kind of failed miserably, and ended up getting through using a non-dwarf kind of deck the first time round. But I've decided to go with the dwarves. It was always a bit of like an unfinished thing in my mind. Because they're the cards you're kind of given in the cycle, aren't they? So,
and of course, it
let's
makes
give that
sense.
a bash.
And of course, the White Council would probably go, well, we haven't heard from Balin for a while. Should we ask if these dwarfs could go and check it out? That would make sense. But it doesn't mean that they wouldn't also ask some others to go with them. So I think people should make sure they don't shackle themselves when they're thinking about putting these decks together. Like, oh, I want it to be completely thematic. I mean, you only have to take a little step of the imagination that the White Council's asking this, and it becomes completely thematic. And that was just my thought.
Yeah. I just love the language of this as well, which is, you have been sent by the White Council to Moria to deliver a message to Balin and his dwarven colony. No one's heard from him in a while. It's just such a setup, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, ooh, what could possibly go wrong? Okay, all right, so let's come to the setup. All right, setup, that was. Search for the encounter deck for Eastgate and Cave Torch.
Yes.
Okay, so you dig them out for the encounter deck. Put Eastgate into play as the active location and have the first player attach Cave Torch to a hero of his choice. Set First Hall and Bridge of Khazad Dûm side out of play. Shuffle the encounter deck. So, let's get rid of First Hall and Bridge of Khazad Dûm, but let's have a look at Eastgate and Cave Torch.
Yeah.
So, Eastgate first. So, this immediately becomes your active location. So, you see Eastgate. I think you see the Eastgate there, which looks like a pretty cool dwarven carved doorway gate thing. And it's got 7 threat, but it's going to be the active location, so should be right. But you need 7 to get through it.
Do you know what? I've never noticed that it had 7 threat before, because of course it's never leaving the active location. Yeah.
And why is it never leaving the active location?
Because it's immune to immune to card effects.
Amazing card effects.
Full stop.
And it's of type gate, should point out. So there's a gate. It's immune to card effects. Also, players cannot optionally engage enemies and no engagement checks are made. Okay, so that's the critical bit of information really on this card. Yeah. Forced, after Eastgate leaves play as an explored location, add First Hall to the staging area. And it's got a victory point as well, so you see it's not going to go into the discard pile. Yeah. It's a unique kind of location. You just need to go through it once. So really important bits of text on that card. So as soon as you get through that, you're going to go to the First Hall, which is great. I love this already.
You took the words from my mouth. I love the fact that this quest starts and it basically says, we have to go on this journey. This is the way. This is the way we're going.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. It's like,
I'm sorry I cut you off, but I was very excited.
Yes. And you're right to be, John. But yeah, totally. I think that's such a really simple, and sometimes it's the most simple sort of dynamics of this game which are the most effective in my mind. And that's just, you get through this location, here's your next one.
Yeah.
Go through that location, here's your next one. And each one, you're in the Eastgate. Players cannot optionally engage enemies, no engagement checks are made. So you're at the gate. Yeah. You're not going to come across any enemies, but they could be building up in the background. Who knows what's going on down in the mines? Or they heard something.
They're watching you going, who are these guys trying to get through this gaping hole in the mountain? Seem to be struggling to get through this massive hole.
Well, I like it because it's like, for me, this gives the impression, you need 7 to get through it. It's like a gate. You'll go in and it's kind of dark. and it's a tunnel which goes on until you get to the first hall, which is what you're going to get to. That's what it says here, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's quite. I really love it. It's like this ominous kind of feeling as you're traveling into this gate and through this tunnel, which this gate leads into.
Love it.
So that's great. Great gate. And then the other card was Cave Torch, which, as a reminder, you have to attach to. So the first player has to attach to a hero of his or her choice. And what does it say on the Cave Torch? It's of type light.
Love it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't know why. It's light. It's good. Attached to a hero, restricted. So that's important. It's a restricted attachment.
Yeah.
So whoever's carrying Cave Torch only gets one more restricted attachment.
Only got one more hand.
Exactly. So choose wisely. And it has an action which is exhaust Cave Torch to place up to 3 progress tokens on a dark location. So you're literally lighting up the dark as you're traveling through the mines.
Yeah.
But it also says forced. After Cave Torch exhausts, discard the top card of the encounter deck. If that card is an enemy, add it to the staging area.
How wonderful is that?
That's so good, isn't it? So you're looking around in the dark. Is there an enemy there? Yes or no?
Yeah.
If there is no enemy, fine. Carry on. You don't suddenly come across another location.
Well, I see. Yes, exactly. But I see it like this. So, of course, the action, you exhaust it, which, okay, that sounds a little counterintuitive, but that's just how we trigger cards in this game. So you exhaust
You're using it.
So basically, you're using it. You're lighting it up, and that allows you to progress through the dark. In itself, brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic.
But
this
then,
is light, type light. Yeah.
But when you light it up, of course, we're not talking about enemies just attacking you. You're lighting up, but maybe an enemy can see that light in the distance and is drawn to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So then they're massing in the staging area. How beautifully thematic is this one card?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's fantastic. So already you can just see the 2 cards that we have to use from setup. Yeah, thematically like perfect, and you're drawn in straight away into this quest. So yeah, a strong start.
No, it's absolutely wonderful.
I agree.
So we have this torch at our disposal. We've attached it to one of our heroes. We know we have to get through the East Gate. What's next?
Okay, so we flip the card over to 1B, and you see that we need 7 progress to get through this card. And it says the doors of the East Gate hang crooked on their hinges. Uh-oh.
That does not sound good.
No one's heard from Barlin in a while. The darkness inside the doorway is still and impenetrable, shutting out the last beams of a sinking sun. That's quite poetic, isn't it?
It's lovely.
And then it says, when revealed, reveal 1 encounter card per player and add it to the staging area. Players cannot advance to the next stage of the scenario unless Bridge of Khazad-dûm is in their victory display. So that's telling you the first part of this is you've got to get across the Bridge of Khazad-dûm.
Yeah. And we know that location is not coming next because we read on the East Gate that the next card up is the first hall. So we will presume that the Bridge of Khazad-dûm is coming after the first hall. Yeah. So just from that, we know in order to get through this first part of the quest, we are going to have to travel through 3 locations and put the 7 progress on this quest.
Yeah. And quick question on the theming of this as well. So I'm assuming that the East Gate of Khazad-dûm, is that the direction of Lorien? Because that's where the White Council will be. This isn't the gate which the Fellowship went through. They go through the west side.
They go through the...
Or is it map time?
in Karadas, underneath Karadas, and they have come down from the north, of course, hitting they would certainly be hitting the west. They wouldn't be going in from the east. So if you think about it, I think probably the East Gate is probably, I don't know how many entrances / exits there are from Khazad-dûm. It's probably the door that the Fellowship leave through.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was alluding to. Yeah. So this is coming the other way.
Yeah. Because if you think about when they get out of the Mines of Moria in Fellowship of the Ring, they before long they're into the Forest of Lorien. So yeah, that would make absolute sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course you wouldn't be able to get to the Bridge of Khazad-dûm that quickly through the entrance that the Fellowship took.
Yeah, so...
I'll tell you what, I can't remember the link off the top of my head, but we did mention it in one of our Share the Love sections. We do have...
The map. What's
the
it
map,
called?
which actually directly relates to the game. So, that is not very specific.
.com.
Not the project which tracks everyone from the books, but the one which directly links to this game. And so we will look that up. Or
yes.
Yeah.
Or say we will.
Or not.
Right. So, quest card 1B. So we've entered the mines.
So we enter the mines and we have to quest through. And of course, we're going to get some locations and we're going to get some treacheries, but we're not going to get any enemies attacking us.
Yeah. Well.
Except, yes.
Yes. I had this as well.
So go ahead.
Okay. Yes. So, the Goblin Follower.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So, Goblin Follower has a when revealed effect, which is Goblin Follower engages the last player.
Yeah.
So what does Eastgate say? Players cannot option engage enemies and no engagement checks are made. However, you don't need to this. This is an automatic engagement.
Yeah.
So when revealed effect. So Goblin Follower, even if you got Eastgate as the active location, this guy can still engage you and you'll end up in a fight. So one to bear in mind there. Yeah. And yeah, I came across that too.
Now, I have a few more things to talk about with the Goblin Follower, but they will come up later, more sort of like little rule nuances to do with when he will and when he won't engage you. But that will come up, I think, naturally.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with that. Okay. All right. So yeah, we're playing through. We're potentially getting enemies in the staging area building up.
Sorry, I just remembered. Goblins. There are lots of goblins in this. And
yes.
There are orcs. And a lot of the goblins are type goblin and type orc. And it made me go, well, what is the difference between a goblin and an orc? I just remember that the goblins were sort of Tolkien's preferred language in The Hobbit. He used to refer to all the orcs as goblins, and when he got to Lord of the Rings, they were always referred to as orcs. So I looked it up, and I was right. But Tolkien did indeed use the term goblin throughout The Hobbit, and then really changed it. Kind of not changed his mind, but then started referring to them as orcs in Lord of the Rings. And his take on it was that orc is the Elven name for a goblin, and translated into English, the word orc becomes goblin. And he stated that when he wrote The Hobbit, it was written as if it had been translated. So basically, the short answer to this is there is no difference between a goblin and an orc. You do notice in the films, when they're in Khazad-dûm, there's some arrows are fired, and Legolas grabs one. He looks at it and he goes, "Goblins!"
Yes, he does.
And in my mind, goblins are always a little bit different to orcs. But this is apparently, according to Tolkien, it's not true. But in my mind, they always are. The goblins are sort of more the kind of like they sort of roam in packs in the dark. They've got the wider eyes. I mean, Tolkien probably thought they were just like, well, these are just the orcs which have been living underground, so their eyes have become wider and they sort of roam in these sort of giant masses, whilst the orcs are a bit more organised outside.
Organized.
Organised.
Oh, God. Shouldn't be allowed.
But if you're curious, no difference.
Okay. Now, a couple of things with that. So that means then every single card we'll ever see, which is a goblin or an orc, will always say goblin and orc on it.
Probably not.
No.
Yeah, and of course we should always go by the letter of the law of the game, that if there's a card which affects a card type goblin or a card type orc, you should only go by the written word. Of course, do not go by Tolkien's word.
Okay, point number 2, and this is from the film. And like I said before, it's been a long time since I read the book, so it's not fresh in my mind. I'm sure when they talk about the Uruk-hai, they say that Saruman has been breeding orcs with goblin men. So is there something about goblins being like some form of man-orc thing?
Yeah, but then
man-goblin,
but the
gob-man?
weird thing is, as I sort of alluded to earlier, that whole breeding of the Uruk-hai is, I was going to say, is fantasy.
Yeah, this is made up.
No, but that, unless I just skipped over it somehow, perhaps it was deep in a song, is not in the books at all. The Uruk-hai are just a race of fearsome war orcs. Walks,
But
if you
they're
like.
mentioned in the books, Uruk-hai.
Oh, the Uruk-hai are in the books.
They're Orcanised walks. Goodness gracious. We think Tolkien was good at language. Hey, we don't. Sit up and take notice.
Yeah, obviously, Uruk-hai are definitely in the books. Yeah, for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
they're not.
They're just orcs.
Yeah, but
they're hard orcs.
But they're not bred out of pods like they are in the films.
Pods?
Porks.
Porks. Salted porks.
Orcanised porks.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's come back to the goblin stroke orc argument. Let's do this. Let's make this promise. The first time we come across a subsequent card,
Yes.
In a future quest or whatever, where it has either goblin or orc, but not both, let's readdress it at that point.
Well, I don't think.
And then that'll give us a chance to.
That's fine.
Find out
I think
a bit more.
chances are. I mean, I don't know this at all as a fact, but I think chances are most of the orcs that are inside Khazad-dûm and inside mines and inside mountainous places will probably be referred to as goblins.
Right.
I think and that's mostly a hang up from how they're described in The Hobbit, I think.
Right, yeah. The Goblin King.
The Goblin King, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
David Bowie.
Now that is a great character. Bowie's Goblin King.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I remember watching Labyrinth and absolutely loving it.
It's a masterpiece.
Just loved it. A masterpiece. And
I love it.
that was great. And I actually saw that a year or so ago.
Is it no longer a masterpiece?
It's great.
Okay.
It's actually a really clever story.
It is.
Goblin King, expertly played by Bowie, and I've always really loved that song.
Dance
that
magic dance.
Yeah, it's a tune. That's a great tune.
I knew that would be
It's such a happy, catchy tune. I really like it. So I love that synth. That synth on it is great. It's just a very 1984-ish, 1985-ish kind of tune. It's good.
A friend of mine was a massive, massive Bowie fan, and he got really upset. He phoned me up. I hadn't spoken to him for like 2 years, and he phoned me up, and he said they've just re-released all of Bowie's albums. You know, it was one of these big remasters. You know, because the mastering wasn't good the first time round.
Yeah. Apparently, yeah.
And they'd re-released everything, and he goes, "They've missed out Labyrinth."
The soundtrack.
Yeah.
He was really upset.
He was very upset. They skipped over it. He was fuming.
He was very angry. I demand justice for Labyrinth, Bowie's Labyrinth. Yeah, I guess the man himself wasn't too bothered. You can skip that one. He did quite a bit of I say quite a bit. He did a few films which he did songs for, didn't he? The one I always really loved from that era was This Is Not America.
Oh, yeah.
From The Falcon and the Snow. I love that tune.
Oh.
But have you ever heard the original tune? It's called Chris, which is one of the characters from the film, The Falcon and the Snow, which is a really good film, actually, by the way, if everyone hasn't seen that. but it's by Pat Metheny, who's an unbelievable guitar player. And I can't remember the name of the guy he used to collaborate with, a keyboard player. And together they wrote an instrumental version, an instrumental tune. And there's a 12-inch version of it, which is really impossible to get your hands on. But there is a YouTube clip of it. If you like that music, check out the 12-inch of a song called Chris by Pat Metheny from Vulcan and the Snowman. I'm sure you all remember that. And it's amazing. It's that kind of ethereal 80s kind of synthy, kind of dreamy kind of thing. Yeah. Really hypnotic, fantastic stuff. That's one of my favourite tunes. And it's just amazing to hear that and then think, well, Bowie came along and thought, right, okay, we've got to put a melody and some vocals over this and bring it down to like a 3-minute pop song.
Yeah.
And he just does it obviously effortlessly. And it's incredible to hear both of those. Think, wow, you went from that to, this is not America. Fantastic. Amazing. You
say he does it effortlessly. I mean, we don't know what went behind the scenes. Maybe he was
took him hours.
Yeah, working on it for 6 months.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah, you're quite right. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thing to say, isn't it? I've fallen into the trap. And people say it all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not effortless. People probably get really annoyed if you say it. It's not effortless. Took me blooming ages. I worked my whole life to be able to do things like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Effortlessly, yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay. Anyway.
Right, so goblins are orcs, orcs are goblins, but when it comes to this game, they have...
Do what it says on the card.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so shall we talk about the rest of 1B?
Oh my God, we're not even at the end of 1B.
So,
okay.
No. Well, it's just for locations, isn't it? So, so from that first, from the East Gate, it takes 7 to get through.
Yeah.
That's a fair bit.
Yeah.
So you can't option engage enemies, no engagement checks made. So you could end up in a situation, if you're getting enemies drawn out, they're just going to be building up in the staging area.
Yeah.
So something to look out for.
Yeah, so you've got to quest hard and fast if you can with this.
Well, it depends. You might be ready to quest, but not ready to fight as well. You might need to build yourself up to fight. I found myself in that situation a couple of times. I think it depends on which deck you've taken. The deck which I beat this quest with this time round was more, just quest through it because you're probably going to be okay fighting. It's kind of dwarfy based kind of thing. But yeah, for some players it might suit them to stay on that card a little bit to build themselves up. But when you do get through it, obviously that goes to your victory display, so not back into your encounter deck. And the effect was, as Eastgate leaves play as an explored location, add First Hall to the staging area. And First Hall has a threat of 2 and more fantastic artwork.
Yeah.
You only need 2 to get through this, and it's an underground location.
Mm-hmm.
And to travel there, it says travel, each player must raise his threat by 3 to travel here. So that's a big hit you take on the threat there.
I see, but that's why I say race through that first card, keep your threat down nice and low, get there, get your threat up, no problem, get in.
Yeah. Ideally, I think that's probably the best way, isn't it? Just leg it through Moria. Well, we say, but it's interesting what happens later too. So, we'll come to it. So, Forced, after First Hall leaves play as an explored location, guess what? Add Bridge of Khazad-dûm to the staging area. And this one goes into the victory display. So this one's, not too hard to get through. It's only got 2
progress.
It's only got 2 progress tokens needed. Thank you. And it shouldn't present too much of a challenge. It's interesting to note, though, it's an underground location. It's not a dark location. So you can't use your cave torch to get around it and not raise your threat by 3. So just bear that in mind as well. I made that mistake one time playing this. I was starting to use the cave torch to get through locations, and I wasn't checking they were dark locations.
Yeah.
And that was just this week. So even after a year playing this game, I'm still making amateurish, inadvertent cheating mistakes.
Yeah, and also bear in mind that as soon as you get to this location, all those enemies that have been building up in the staging area, they can come for you now.
Oh, yeah. And your threat's going to go up by 3. So your engagement likelihood is going to be boosted too. So, yeah. So I had a situation, actually, on these 2 cards where I wasn't ready to engage the enemies.
Mm.
But instead of getting location locked, I got enemy locked. I kept getting enemies off the counter deck at a bigger rate than I was able to. And I just lost the game really quickly because I wasn't able to build myself up enough to take the hits off these guys. And they were all going to engage me, basically. But it was getting worse each time because another enemy kept coming out. Until eventually I just had to just go for it and quest through, and I just got completely slaughtered by those enemies. And that was the end of that.
Oh, well, I've got one, actually, and we'll have to jump to an enemy here. So it's a goblin swordsman. Now, this guy...
These guys are nasty.
All right, so this guy, goblin swordsman, he's an enemy. He's got an engagement cost of 20. So obviously he would normally be coming at you straight away, but because of that first location, he's stuck up in the staging area. Only contributes 1 threat, so not too bad, but he hits for 3, and he has 1 defense, and he has 2 hit points. He's a goblin and an orc. But it states this: Goblin Swordsman gets +2 attack if this attack is undefended. Okay, so that sounds like, well, just make sure you don't take an undefended attack. But I accidentally overquested on stage 1B and cleared the East Gate. I had 2 swordsmen up in the staging area. So what happened is I didn't have any ready allies or heroes at this stage. I think I only had heroes out. And so these 2 swordsmen came, and I had to take undefended attacks. And that's basically him hitting for 5. And of course it's undefended. So that's 2 dead heroes.
Yeah, exactly. That's effect of getting the +2 if it's undefended is absolutely brutal. I had I had one where I had quest, and I overquested because I had to exhaust another character, I think, but I didn't want to, or I had to discard a character through one of the treachery, something that.
Yeah.
Which meant suddenly I had no one to defend with. And then suddenly that was it. That was the end of that. You can just completely ruin your strategy there. So yeah, he's a really nasty one, even just hitting for 3 is bad.
Yeah, but he's particularly nasty. And now I believe we will see the Goblin Swordsman again. Now, if you think this through,
what makes you just got an inkling, John?
Well,
I've got a funny feeling we might be seeing this guy again.
Yeah, but he has an engagement cost of 20. So at least in this quest, you can see him building up in the staging area and be ready for him. If this guy comes out early in a quest and he just comes for you and you weren't ready for him and you've got all your heroes quested, then you're in real trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Love the artwork, by the way. That, to me, is a goblin right there.
Oh, he's nasty, isn't he?
Yeah, that is not David Bowie.
No. He doesn't look too pleased to see you, in all honesty. Good crumbs. Yeah. It's that kind of olive-coloured skin. It's not like olive skin, like, a Mediterranean. It's like literally like an olive. That's quite goblin-y. More goblin-y than orky, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That underground thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay, I'm with you. All right.
Oh, a very nasty shadow effect as well on the Goblin Swordsman.
Oh, God, yeah.
Which says, add Goblin Swordsman to the staging area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, it's all right. So, you're not getting anything worse happen to you from that card on that particular go. But his mate's there to back here.
Yeah.
Not good.
No.
Not good.
No.
Okay. So, when you get through the first hall, you arrive at the Bridge of Khazad-dûm.
Fly, you fools!
So, Bridge of Khazad-dûm has a threat of 3, and you need 3 progress to get through it. And it's underground, and it's bridge type as well. While Bridge of Khazad-dûm is the active location, players cannot play cards. So, earlier on, when we were talking about, and this again comes into play on a later card as well, but when we're talking about trying to whip through as quick as possible,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're confident that you can quest through this in one go,
Yeah.
then you might be okay with what you've currently got. But sometimes you're not quite ready for it, and you can't play cards. You can't. That's it. You got to just go with what you've got on the table.
Yeah.
And you can't do any cancellations, anything like that. You can't play any cards whatsoever. So you do have to make sure that you're ready to quest through this. You only need 3. But, you could get unlucky from the encounters. Yeah. You've got to make sure you've managed your staging area properly and all of that stuff. So you need to be a bit careful on that one.
Well, what I found with this was by the time I got to that second location, the first hall, I probably had a few locations already built up in the staging area. So I'd probably travel to one of those before going to Khazad-dûm, because of course Khazad-dûm goes to the staging area. It doesn't go immediately become the active location.
Yes, correct.
So you can place it there, read it, and then go, okay, yeah, I better not go there yet. And of course you could actively not go there even if you don't have a location. You can just wait.
Yeah, I had to do that a couple of times.
Yeah.
I have to just wait to travel there.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the most sensible thing to do. Just because it goes to the staging area, you can already read it. You already know it's coming, so you can just prepare that way. But of course, the longer you wait, the more things are going to come off that encounter deck and give you grief.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so once you do get through Khazad-dûm, then you are through the first quest card. So shall we move to...
well, you still have to put 7 progress on it, by the way. That's something to remember.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, it's a fair bit to get through. So you got 7 on the quest card itself. You got 7 on the East Gate, and you got 2 on First Hall and 3 on Khazad-dûm.
Yeah.
So using my expert mathematics, I think that's 19 in total that you need. I did that all in my head, John. So yeah, that's a fair amount for a first quest card.
Yeah.
Whilst you're still getting some pretty bad treacheries as well, which we're going to come on to, and 2 of the enemies we've already discussed. They're not easy enemies, so it's a bit of a it's certainly no gimme as a first quest card.
Sure,
I would say, and I've come a cropper of that first quest a couple of times when it hasn't worked out. When you do get through that first quest, we move on to quest 2A, which is Goblin Patrol, and it says, the skeletons of dwarves and orcs lie undisturbed, but you have discovered no recent sign of the dwarven colony. The sound of scampering feet travels to your ears, and you move in that direction to investigate. There is a patrol of goblins marching in a loose formation through the shadows.
Keep it loose.
Keep it loose. They're not organized. This is a goblin rabble.
Yes.
That's what they call out a patrol. Okay, so you flip the card over, and you can see here that you need 11 progress to get through.
Ooh.
I love the colours of the artwork here. That kind of mysterious kind of green and aqua blue kind of shades. When revealed, each player must search the encounter deck and discard pile for 1 enemy of his choice and add it to the staging area. Doesn't sound too bad.
Mm-hmm.
One choice must be patrol leader, if able. So you're getting a patrol leader.
Yeah.
If you're playing 1 player, you have to choose the patrol leader.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely. There's no doubt. And the reason why it says if able is I believe there are 2 copies of patrol leader in the deck, and it is possible, you'd have to be seriously unlucky, but it's possible that you've already got them. Both.
Already got both of them.
Yeah.
Oh, I was trying to figure out how that would be the case. Okay, so you've drawn them both already.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want that. Crumbs. Shall we have a look at patrol leader? Do you want to do the honours? Or do you want to wait?
No. We should. But actually, just before we do, because I've got a few little rule nuances for this whole set, and rather than doing them all in one hit, I'll just jump into one now.
Okay.
And this is to do with the fact you have to search the encounter deck or the discard pile for a particular card.
And discard pile.
Oh, sorry. You have to search the deck and the discard pile for a particular card. Now, I believe this is the first time the game states to do this, and it isn't followed by then shuffle the encounter deck. Okay? Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't shuffle the encounter deck, basically from this point forward, shuffling of the encounter deck is implied whenever you have to search for a card. And this was confirmed in the fact it's, I've got it here. It's rule clarification 1.21, search effects. And it states, whenever a player searches through a deck, that player shuffles the deck after searching it, unless a card effect says otherwise. Players do not shuffle or change the order of a discard pile after searching it. Okay, so basically, they just got around the fact that they were having to write after all of these searching decks, be it the player deck or the encounter deck, they kept on having to print, then shuffle the deck. They at one point just went, okay, from this point on, it is just implied. When you search for a card, shuffle the deck.
Okay, so how I've played this, yeah, okay, fine. And I think every time, you have to search something out of your own deck or the encounter deck, you would shuffle it.
Yeah.
I think that obviously makes sense anyway.
Yeah.
How I've been playing this, hopefully I've been playing this right. So if I've looked through the discard pile, or in fact, let's do it this way. If I look through the encounter deck, let's say in this example, I pick out a patrol leader, put them there, I'll then shuffle the encounter deck, plop it back. Okay? If I search for discard pile, I look through the discard pile, take out patrol leader, put him into the staging area, put the discard pile back without shuffling it, and then I leave the encounter deck alone. I do not shuffle the encounter deck.
No, you haven't searched it.
Okay, fine, good. Okay, we've been playing it correctly. What I've also done is it says search the encounter deck in the discard pile. What I'd rather do is if I've got one of these in the discard pile already, I don't want to put that one into play.
No.
I'd rather get the one out of the encounter deck.
Absolutely.
Because maybe I've got this guy as a shadow or something already, and I don't want to bring that one back.
No. Don't give yourself the chance that you're going to get two of them.
Yeah, exactly. So what I've always done in this situation is I'll just go, I'd rather check the encounter deck anyway.
I would as
rather
well.
than discard pile.
100%, yeah. You want that card out of anything that might be coming up.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. So I think I've been playing this correctly.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's a weird one, but the fact is it just doesn't specifically say shuffle the deck. And this game, normally you have to do what it says explicitly. And from this point on, it doesn't, but you do.
So if you have to search your deck or you have to search the encounter deck, shuffle it afterwards. If you search for discard pile or your discard pile, you don't shuffle.
Correct. Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Nice and simple.
Yeah.
Good. Phew. Okay. All right. So, in fact, should we look at the patrol leader or should we finish reading through the card?
Okay, well, we know we're getting the patrol leader into the staging area, so let's finish the card and then we'll hit up the patrol leader.
Okay. So that's the when revealed effect. You're getting the patrol leader.
Yeah.
And obviously each player must reveal an enemy. So if you're playing multiplayer, you're getting one patrol leader plus however many other players you can.
I like to just get both patrol leaders, personally.
Wow, you fancy a chance. Get rid of them both. Get them out. Get rid of them early. And then there's a force effect, which is after an enemy is revealed from the encounter deck, discard it instead of adding it to the staging area. So you're only getting the patrol leader, if you're playing one player, say, on this quest card. So what you want to see when you're questing is you want to see enemies come up. Because you're just going to put them in discard pile.
Yeah.
You won't, but that's what you're going to want. And then it says at the bottom, if there are no enemies in play, immediately advance to the next stage of the scenario. Players can also advance by placing 11 progress tokens on Goblin Patrol. So you've got two ways out of this. You can leg it and run away from these enemies, which is pretty good. I love that. Or you can just take them out, but then you don't have to run away. You just defeat them. Then you can relax.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're playing a dwarf deck, most likely you're just going to stand and fight, in my experience.
Yeah.
Okay, now I swear we will go on to the patrol leader any second, but actually just hearing the end of To Be There, I think I will just jump onto the other rule nuances, because actually there's one thing. If we jump back to the cave torch for a moment. Now, we haven't actually used the cave torch for anything yet. Now, just a reminder, we can exhaust the cave torch to put 3 progress on a dark location if we want to. But when we do that, we have to take a card from the encounter deck, and if it's an enemy, add it to the staging area. Okay, just as a reminder there. Now, the Cave Torch is an interesting one because the forced effect of card 2B, which states after an enemy is revealed from the encounter deck, discard it instead of adding it to the staging area, that doesn't break Cave Torch's forced effect, because Cave Torch states forced. After Cave Torch exhausts, discard the top card of the encounter deck. Okay, so that's the first thing you do. Discard a card from the encounter deck. If that card is an enemy, add it to the staging area.
Yeah, so you're not revealing.
So it's not being revealed from the encounter. Well, You're not revealing it for a start. So again, the difference between revealing and adding.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not revealing it for a start. And also, it's not even coming from the encounter deck. It's coming from the discard pile. You discard a card, and then if that card is an enemy, you add it to the staging area. So if you happen to be using Cave Torch and you do discard an enemy, stage 2B force effect of not adding enemies is negated, and the enemies are coming to the staging area.
Circumvented, yeah. Okay, that makes sauce. That makes sauce. It makes sauce. Delicious. It also makes sense. I to be honest, I didn't actually notice that, but I don't think I was smart enough to even notice the link between them anyway. So I was just adding the enemies to the staging area.
Okay.
Anyway, so worth adding to this as well. Wrong choice word. Worth stating as well that when you do the Cave Torch forced effect, after Cave Torch exhausts, discard the top card of the encounter deck. If that card is an enemy, add it to the staging area. So back to what we were saying about Goblin Follower, who has a when revealed effect. When revealed, Goblin Follower engages the last player.
Yeah.
Now, if this guy turns up because of your Cave Torch forced effect, he doesn't engage you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, well
and
done.
this is just coming to my head now. No, this isn't something I've been playing. This is something that's coming to my head.
No, I was so proud. I'm glowing.
Listener, you should see John's smiling, fatherly smile. Look at that pride. So okay, cool. So that's something, but that's exactly the kind of mistake I would absolutely make.
Yeah.
And you forget those simple things. It's really important about adding, revealing, the difference between them. Always read the cards. When revealed, you're not revealing it, you're adding it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't engage you. Right. Okay, cool. Okay, so that was what you said. There was another nuance as well.
Yeah, then I'd have to jump to a treachery. So I think perhaps we'll do that in a second. Well, let's talk about this patrol leader, because
finally
we've mentioned him enough.
Okay, let's look at the patrol leader. So he is a nasty looking character. I mean, look at this guy. Jeez Louise.
He's a brute.
A brute of a goblin.
Orc.
He has an engagement cost of 30. He has a threat of 3. He hits for 4. He has a shield of 3, and he has 4 hit points. Oh my golly goodness. And not only that, he has a forced effect. Forced. Before patrol leader is dealt damage, discard the top card of the encounter deck. If the discarded card is an enemy, cancel that damage. So one of his patrol has got in the way of your blow.
I love the theme of this.
Yeah, so good.
They're
amazing. Protecting their captain who doesn't really need protecting anyway.
Oh, I'm gonna get a killer blow on the patrol leader. Oh no, this goblin scout has got in the way. Oh, love it.
So for me, a classic one with this guy is using Gandalf.
Well, yeah. So tell me, because I made a note of this. This is how I also tried to deal with this guy.
My deck was made up of Dane, Gloin, and Gimli as my heroes. Okay. So I would try to soup up Gimli. And to be honest, normally, once Patrol Leader turns up, I would hope Gimli was in a sufficient enough state that if he can attack the patrol leader, he can take him out.
Yeah.
But you still got to do that effect, you know. But it also means you're pretty certain to lose a chump blocker or really seriously damage somebody else, you know. I only Gandalfed this guy once, and I got lucky, and I didn't get an enemy, and I did kill him. So that was very pleasing. Did you have the same experience?
No, well, I just made a note that I would try and Gandalf him, either like just bring him in or sneak attacking him in. And basically, I was playing the odds that I would, hopefully, I would sneak attack him in, or if the patrol leader was already in the staging area, I'd just play Gandalf and obviously try and put that 4 direct damage straight on him. If it wasn't an enemy, that was a wasted Gandalf effect, but then I would already have Gandalf on the table. So then I would pair Gandalf up with another attacker and hopefully, you know, second time's a charm, be able to take him out. Because
so you double Gandalf.
Yeah, I double Gandalf because Gandalf's got that 4 attack as well, of course. Yeah, the thing is, I was playing this, and the first time I played it through, I went, well, this is an ideal card for Shadow of the Past. Shadow of the Past, of course, allows you to take a card off of the discard pile and put it back onto the encounter deck. So, of course, if you know it's a treachery or a location, you just put it there, you're guaranteed to put the damage on him. I mean, I saw that, I thought that through, I didn't change my deck, I just kept gambling.
Yeah. See, I didn't even think to use Shadow. I don't use Shadow of the Past enough. Every time it comes up on this podcast, or when we go through certain scenarios, we think of things where it'd be really useful, and I never go back and put it in.
Well, neither did I, but I did think about it.
Yes, that's the important thing.
It's the thought that counts.
Yeah, exactly. Did you? Is that a spirit card?
Neutral. So you can put it in any deck.
Oh god, is it really? Is it neutral? Shadow
You can put it in any deck.
I got no excuse whatsoever. Terrible.
Oh dear.
All right.
Yeah. So patrol leader. Yeah, he is tough, and you want to be killing him in one go because you don't want his effect to trigger. You don't want to be missing hits with him over and over again. So you want to be trying to kill him in one go. But those times where you don't take him out because of his force effect, they are painful. But like you say, if you can sneak attack Gandalf in or just play Gandalf out and there's at least have one shot at maybe just killing him straight off the bat with direct damage, you might get lucky. And if you're not, you've got Gandalf on the table and he can help with your attack. And hopefully, 50-50.
Yeah. In we go. May luck be a lady tonight.
Yeah, but he is nasty.
Yeah, once he hits for 4, and that free shield can be really horrible.
Yeah.
As well.
I mean, I only had it once where I had to face him before this quest card, and then had to face him again, and I did win, but yeah, that wasn't very pleasant.
No, yeah, he can cause big problems. Okay, now shall we move on to the next quest card, or did you want to talk about it?
Well, no, I should just jump to one, because I've got one more rule nuance to do with quest card 2B. And in order to talk about that, you need to talk about one of the treacheries. And that treachery is Watchful Eyes.
Oh my god, right, okay. You know how much I really dislike the Necromancer's Reach?
Yes.
Right. This is my new Necromancer's Reach.
Oh, fantastic.
I don't like it.
Well,
and look how nasty is the artwork on this.
Yeah, no, it's horrendous because it's obviously it's an orc or a goblin in the shadows there with his eyes lit up by a little bit of light, maybe from your cave
red
torch.
Flame.
Yeah. But he also...
That's not what you want to be seeing from your cave torch.
Absolutely not. Let me just light this bad boy up. Oh my god. But it looks very beastly, doesn't it?
It's almost like it's what Darth Maul should have been.
Okay, so Watchful Eyes is a treachery, and it states this. When revealed, the first player attaches Watchful Eyes to one of his heroes. Counts as a condition attachment with the text, limit 1 per hero. Forced. If attached hero is exhausted at the end of the combat phase, reveal one card from the encounter deck and add it to the staging area. Okay, so basically you're stuck with this treachery attached to you, and if you're exhausted at the end of the combat, you're getting an extra card out of the encounter deck. So that's basically what it does. Now, I've got a couple of things to say about this treachery, but just...
I know what... I just realised what one of them is going to be.
But just quickly, the one rules thing I did want to mention in relation to stage 2B, and it's to do with the revealing cards, and if they are enemies, they go to the discard pile. Stage 2B actually completely nerfs this card. Absolutely, completely wipes it out. So this card states that at the end of the combat phase, reveal one card from the encounter deck and add it to the staging area. If you reveal an enemy, then stage 2B's forced effect kicks in and it would be discarded. So actually, thank you very much, stage 2B.
But it stays on you.
Oh, it stays on you. So I put in, because it's a dwarf deck, so why wouldn't I? I put in the Miner of the Iron Hills, of course, which is the only ally we have at the moment which allows us to remove condition attachments. Didn't see him once. I think I played 5 times. Didn't come out of my deck once.
I did. Just before, when I had to play him to get some more questing available. And on that goes when I got the Watchful Eyes attachment, obviously. But, okay.
But I tell you what I did do, though, in relation to last week's episode. So I put together a new deck for this, which was Dane, Tharlin, our old friend Tharlin.
I love Tharlin.
And Biffa. Remember, we both hadn't played Biffa. So, and we talked about last week that we could use the Arable Record Keeper to ready Dane or anyone using the resources from Biffa. And Biffa could accept a resource from anyone. So I was actually playing out a tactic we discussed. So I was defending with Dane, and Dane had Watchful Eyes on him. And then if Biffa didn't have a resource, I was moving a resource over from Dane onto Biffa, and then I was exhausting the Arable Record Keeper, spending the resource from Biffa, and readying Dane, therefore getting around the Watchful Eyes. How about that?
Perfect. Exactly as you should do. Yeah, I was doing something similar with, because I had Dane, and I had good old Navi's Belt. So I was doing something similar there. Because I always put it on Dane, because I thought he's the least likely to be exhausted.
Yeah.
He'll only be exhausted if I really need to defend or attack with him, which is, I'm trying not to do either of those things if I can. But I did have to defend with him sometimes. But yeah, it was completely reliant on having Navi's Belt, of course.
Yeah.
Whereas the way you're doing it is you can just naturally use variabilities. And I guess if you had something like a Steward of Gondor on Dane, he's going to get, he's going to be racking up the resource, and you can get that straight across to Biffa really easily. So, I think that's a nice, nice combo.
Well, my heroes were working really nicely. I'm sorry to say, without Navi's Belt. So, like I said, I had Dane, Tharlin, and Biffa. I had 1 Song of Battle, and I had 3 Rivendell Minstrels. So I was more likely not getting a Rivendell Minstrel out early, finding the Song of Battle, putting that on Dane, getting the Steward of Gondor onto Dane as well. So then Dane was just passing a resource on to Biffa every round, also spending... Sharing the wealth. He was just throwing it around.
But that's a great way to manipulate the resource pools, especially if you've got that situation where you're playing 3 different spheres.
Yeah.
Whereas I had Dane, Gloin, who are both leadership, and Gimli, who was tactics. So were you questing Tharlin and getting that hit on the... Yeah,
always questing with Tharlin. And of course, Tharlin, we love questing with him because he puts that hit on those enemies as they come out. We know that, but he's not a great quester. But now, with Daddy Dane...
Yeah.
He's
so you quest for 1, right? Tharlin?
I was questing with Tharlin. Actually, at the beginning, I was questing with Tharlin, Biffa, and any other allies I was getting on the table. And actually... talking about our advice and not following it. I had 3 Erebor record keepers in my deck, and at one point I had 2 of them out. And you may recall last week I said, well, whatever you do, don't fall into the trap of questing with them. Because you might want to keep them ready in order to exhaust them to ready a hero or whoever. And I was just at the beginning of this just questing with both of them.
You have to, especially at the start, I think.
Yeah, but do you know what? I got another treachery. Oh, we are jumping around now. I got another treachery.
That's good.
Dark and Dreadful.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good, does it?
It is both of those things.
Okay, so Dark and Dreadful, a treachery, simply says, when revealed, deal 1 damage to each exhausted character. 2 damage instead if the active location is a dark location. Well, it didn't matter, 1 or 2, both my Erebor record keepers were dead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really nasty one. Yeah, there are a couple of horrible treacheries here, which can really stitch you up. Yeah, that one can just decimate you if you quested everyone. But, yep, and you think, no, I'm going to just do it anyway, go against my own advice, and then that's what happens. Yeah. What can you do?
I had a little chuckle to myself and went, oh, this is exactly why I said always keep one of them ready.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a treachery story, but I think I need to come on to quest 3A before I
let's
tell
do it.
So once you've destroyed the patrol leader or you've run away and got 11...
Did you ever run away?
Never.
No.
Mainly because you think the patrol leader's still hanging about and it's just going to eventually decimate you if you don't handle him. It's more from that perspective.
I think you have to get rid of him, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure there are ways you could, if you could... Well, let's have a look at quest.
Well, maybe you take a Rohan deck in there, which are super questers, riding their horses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Riding their horses over the ledges of Moria.
They're excellent horsemen. All right. So quest 3A is a way up. And it says, you have captured a member of the patrol and press the wounded goblin for information about the dwarves. It gives a nasty laugh and with a mouthful of blood spits out, Balin can be found in the Chamber of Records. It can say no more.
I can say no more.
Is it sworn to secrecy?
I can say no more.
Or physically unable? I don't know. Anyway. So you flip that over. 3B, you can see you require 12 progress to get through this. The Chamber of Records is on the 7th level of Moria. The way up is treacherous, and you are accompanied by a sense of unease and vague dread. They are not good travel companions.
No.
Heroes do not collect resources during the resource phase. Very important. If the players defeat the stage, they win the game. So you've got a quest for 12.
Yeah.
Through this card, just got to run it up there, and you've got no more resource. You haven't got time for that. You're just sprinting up that passage to the light crack of light at the end of it, which I love the theming of this. Yeah, so good.
It's a real rush.
Yeah, it is. Now, obviously, you need to be questing. You want to be doing it quite quick. You probably shouldn't. If you've got rid of a patrol leader, you probably haven't got any enemies at this point.
Well, no, you almost certainly don't, because one of the stipulations is there are no enemies in play to move on.
Exactly. Well, you might have quested the previous one for 11, is what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, exactly. If
no
you killed the patrol leader, yeah, no one else. But what you could have a bunch of locations at this point, potentially.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously anything that's coming off the encounter deck. So I think it pays, in my experience of doing this again, I think if you do have dark locations, I think it really pays to use the cave torch to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
I did that a lot because I hadn't taken like a spirit deck when you with trackers and all the rest of it, where you can get rid of locations by other means. So yeah, so getting to this point, you shouldn't have any enemies. Hopefully, you've used the cave torch to get rid of a bunch of dark locations, so that helps you manage the staging area getting into this last stage, and you can just have a concerted effort just to press through it and run away as quick as you can. So I played this a couple of nights ago, and I'd got to this stage on 46. I had 46 prep, and I was desperate for Gandalf
Yeah.
to come out because I needed this questing. I thought if I get Gandalf out,
Yeah.
I've basically pretty much done it.
Yeah. Lower your threat and then quest through.
Yeah. So I thought all I just survive this round, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I quested. I kept a couple back in case an enemy came off the deck, and I got a treachery, and the treachery was signs of conflict.
Oh.
You know the ending to this story already.
I do.
Very simple. Doomed 2. Surge. Do I need to finish? Do I need to finish the story?
I think you do.
I'll finish it anyway. So I thought, okay, well, it doesn't matter. I've gone up to 48. Fine.
What could go wrong?
What's the next card off the deck? No, sorry, beg pardon. I started with 45 threat, of course. So I went up to 47 with that. And then what did it surge into? Signs of conflict. Doom 2. Surge. So I've gone up to 49. And I haven't got enough.
No.
Without Gandalf, I'm not questing for enough to complete it this game. So you're dead at that point.
Yeah. Because even if you get to the end of the round, you're dead.
Yeah. So I got some enemy. I killed the enemy. I got to the end of the round and my threat went up to 50.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, how's your luck? What would I've got off my deck next? Gandalf.
Sorry,
Sorry,
I'm late.
Yeah. I was delayed. My goodness. So yeah, that treachery. And also, I've got a real habit of getting signs of conflict as my first one when you have to reveal on quest 1A.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've had
this.
You just start with your threat 2 higher.
Yeah. No, I have a starting threat of 27 with those 3 heroes. It's beautifully low. But the number of times it started at 29?
Mine's 31, my starting threat. I should pay more attention to starting threat. And starting threat, well, actually, that's something which is going to be very interesting later on. But I should pay more attention to my starting threat and the number of cards in my deck. That's 2 things I haven't picked up. I've got a bit better at, haven't I, on the cards?
You just reminded me. This is the first time, I think, since leaving just the core set only decks, that I played a non-50 card deck. I thought of you.
Dun, dun, dun. How many were there?
Well, I put it together at first, and it was 51. And I thought...
Oh, outrageous.
And I thought, well, can I try and get rid of 1 card? And I went, no. What would M do? He would just play it. And I looked at this 51, and I thought, it's such a horrible number. So I added 1 more, and I made it 52, which is a very nice number. Okay,
hold it. So you've gone back to your... I'd completely forgotten about this. Your odd number prejudice.
Well, it's not really a prejudice, more of a bias.
Same thing. Well, okay. More of a bias. Yeah.
But I played with 52. And at some point I was thinking, this is a lot to shuffle. Who would ever make a deck of cards with 52 in?
A ridiculous number.
Unheard of.
Yeah. Unprecedented. Gee.
I have one last little... well, it's not really a rule nuance. It's just a fact that Stage 3B states that you don't claim resources during the resource phase. That does not stop you from using Steward of Gondor. Just you're not allowed to use it during the resource phase.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
So there you go.
So I had Steward of Gondor. That was as much as there was a couple of times where it just didn't come out, unluckily. Yeah. But yeah, that was part of my tactic of having Navi's Belt and Steward of Gondor on Dane.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could, if you, because I think normally what we all do, because it's just easier, is that when you've got Steward of Gondor, you just leave it permanently exhausted, and every resource phase give that hero 3 resources.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. And therefore, it's trained you. So it's just being lazy.
Yeah.
And not doing everything as you should do makes you forget things like that, which could help you.
Exactly. So actually, Steward of Gondor states that you exhaust Steward of Gondor and give that hero 2 resources. So as long as you do that outside of the resource phase, you can keep giving that hero 2 resources.
Yeah.
And should that hero have a song, or can gift it to Biffa, or perhaps have Navi's Belt, it means that you could still keep spreading those resources around.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great one to know, because I had completely not thought of that at all.
Yeah.
I just thought I just treated it as part of a resource phase. So yeah, that's a really good bit of advice.
Okay, so other than that, have I got anything about stage? I mean, like you say, you do kind of have to rush through it. You did remind me something about when you said about the cave torch. Oh, yeah, that was it. That you said that if you use the cave torch to get through these dark locations, which I also heartily recommend if you don't have a heavy questing deck, is you just want to clear out these locations as quick as possible by using that cave torch, because you're still gambling that you might not get an enemy discarded from the encounter deck, so you might not have any negative effects of using it. But one thing to bear in mind is that you can tactically choose when to use that cave torch.
Oh yeah, I always did it after. Well, not always. It depends on the card as well. So and what happens when you complete that.
Exactly.
Explore that location.
Yeah. So some locations have some adverse effects once they're explored, so you might want to be careful of when you use the cave torch in that respect. But for the vast majority of the time, it's often, if you have a lot of characters ready that could fight, then it's more beneficial to use the cave torch earlier so that you can deal with any enemies whilst you've got the ready allies. But most of the time, you'll be wanting to use the cave torch after the encounter phase so that you are prepared if an enemy comes to the staging area for that next round.
Yeah, exactly. And the other scenario was there are certain locations which require more than 3 progress to get through, and what I do with those if I want to clear one out, because some of them have got, I think you've got Lightless Passage, for example, which has got a threat of 4 sitting in the staging area, and you have to exhaust the cave torch to travel there.
Ah, yes.
So sometimes what I do there is, if you couldn't travel there, because you've got another active location, let's say you're on the first quest card, for example, that you'd use for cave torch after the travel phase, say, so it's not going to affect you, and then use it at the start of the next round, so you remove the 4 threat from the staging area.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the only danger there is if using it right at the start of the round is that you might bring an enemy into the staging area. But that's the gamble. Oh, one thing about the cave torch, and I know that you know this now, but this does just relate to what we were talking about last week. If you were using the cave torch to put progress on an active dark location, any progress that would go on that location would not spill onto the quest card. And that's just a
general rule.
Yeah, and that just follows on from what we were saying last week. So just to hammer that home, that's a good example of that not happening. Yeah, we're talking about good cave torch, good cave torch users. There were a couple of locations I was just going to highlight. I mean, there weren't anything too troublesome, but there's a couple of heavy threat-based locations, and the one I highlighted was the Ziggle mine shaft, which has a threat of 5 and takes 5 to explore it. So you don't want it in the staging area, and actually you don't really want it as your active location. It's an underground and dark location, but it has this action. It says action. Oh, this is a encounter card with an action on it. Going back to your insert. Yeah. So this is a prime example of a encounter card which has an action, which means that you can choose to manipulate this card or not. So it says action, raise each player's threat by 1 to place 1 progress token on the Sigil mine shaft. So what I was doing with this, because it is a threat of 5 and 5 to explore, I wasn't traveling there. All I was doing was using the cave torch to put 3 on it, and then just raising my threat by 2 and clearing out. Every time I saw that, that was my that was my go-to action on that one.
And that's what I would have done if I'd understood this correctly.
So
another schoolboy error. So again, too much assumption and not spending enough time really reading. I spent too much time looking at artwork and not enough time looking at the words.
Oh, but it is beautiful.
Amazing. But what I was doing with this, exactly what I was saying about the Lightless Passage, which I'd use the cave torch and then use it at the beginning of the next round and get it out of there. I for some reason, in my head, I had this as you could only do like a 1 per round kind of thing. For no reason whatsoever. There's no, you can just, as soon as this comes out, you can raise your threat by 5 and get rid of it.
It's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no reason you can't. But I didn't, for some reason, that didn't enter my head properly. So it's amazing, after all this time, there are still these basic things which is so easy to get
Well, we're
wrong.
in a whole new set of encounter cards now. I'm expecting this to come up a lot in the next few episodes.
Yeah. This is what I was saying a couple of episodes ago. Don't be fooled, anybody. But I might sound like I know what I'm talking about. But I might know about a couple of things. But I'm generally, nothing.
This is a whole new cycle. There's a
It's
whole, there's a whole world out there.
A whole new world. There's a song in that.
I'll get Bowie on the line.
He'll do it effortlessly.
Now, I mean, there are obviously a ton of new encounter cards in the set. I bet every single encounter card is new to us on this podcast. But we're obviously not going to go through all of them because we're going to see these cards come up again in the subsequent quests. So I don't know. Are there more encounter cards that you came across for this specific quest that you thought are worth a mention?
I think we actually happened to touch upon the specific ones I wanted to mention. In fact, but there was only one other treachery which I wanted to mention.
Oh, let's see if it's the same one I've highlighted. I've got one card still in front of me, and I'm just curious if it's the same one.
Is it a picture of somebody clinging on by their fingernails?
Oh, sorry, I've got 2.
Okay, the one I wanted to mention was Sudden Pitfall.
Yeah, well, that.
You did have to.
I do have 2, but that's the one I had highlighted.
Okay, which is in an understated way called a hazard. And it says, when revealed, the first player must discard one questing character he controls, if able. This effect cannot be cancelled. They've just fallen down a hole.
Yeah. Just
looking
gone.
around this dark place. Boom. See you later.
And
Gone.
if you get this early, that's a hero gone.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to mention it, was precisely because of that, when I lost Gloin, father of Gimli, on the first go of the whole game. So, also, what I haven't seen yet, though, actually, no situation you do want to see. I was about to say, I've never seen this come off as the first revealed card on Quest of Our Day, but actually,
that was the only time I saw it. That was the only time I saw it.
But that's good.
I mean, I highlighted it because it's horrendous, but the only time I saw it was during setup.
Oh, brilliant. Perfect.
Yeah.
So don't do anything. That's exactly what you want.
That's absolutely what you want. No, so I had 2 cards in front of me. One of them was Sudden Pitfall, and the other one, it's also a hazard. It's a cave-in, and it's a treachery, and it says, when revealed, remove all progress tokens from the current quest card and active location. If cave-in remove no progress tokens, it gains surge. Yeah, I'd happily take a surge. Or I could lose all the quest tokens on my first replay of this game. I lost all the progress on quest card 1, whilst I think I was still in the first hall, but I still managed to put all my quest tokens onto quest card 1. And on the last time I played it, I lost all of my quest tokens on quest card 3.
Lovely.
Those are the only 2 times I saw it, but both times it ruined me.
Yeah, I think quest card 3 that's not where you want to see it, because you've probably gone all in for one big go at questing.
Well, yeah,
not cool.
And I actually only have 2 other things to mention, sort of honourable mentions, because we don't tend to mention these very often. Is there are 2 particularly nasty shadow effects.
Oh, I've got a question. You just reminded me.
Go for it.
I have to find the card with the shadow effect.
Okay, well, whilst you're finding it, let me just go over these 2 because they'll be very quick. So I've got 2 shadow effects. One of them is a shadow on a location we actually haven't talked about yet, but we'll not worry about that. It's a shadow on the Goblin Tunnels, and it states, shadow, attacking enemy gets +1 attack. Not a problem. Brackets, +3 attack. Instead, if attacking enemy is a goblin. And as previously mentioned, there are lots of goblins. A lot of them attack for a lot, +3 is another dead hero.
Yeah,
So-
plus another 3 if it's also an orc.
Yeah. So that's particularly unpleasant. Oh, and and burning low is attacking enemy gets +2. So basically, I was having trouble with attacking enemies getting boosted attacks. So there's some pretty nasty shadows there. So sorry, sir, you had...
Well, before I come to my
question.
questions, the other shadow card, which is really nasty, is Sudden Pitfall. That just, you discard a question character. The shadow effect on that is discard the defending character from play.
Oh, wow. Well, I never saw that, thank goodness.
So if you're defending with, I want to get a couple of hit points on Gimli, beef him up a bit. Oh, that's Gimli gone.
Yeah, or how about Dane, your fearless leader, who you've put all the cave torch on?
I'll handle
Narvi's
this.
belt.
I'll handle this defense for you, lads. Oh, falling down a hole.
Yeah. No, you've got the Erebor record keeper waiting there going, well, you're going to defend that, I Dane. It's all right. I've got the records here. I can get you ready just as soon as you... Where have you gone?
Nasty stuff. But it's clear what happens there with that. You don't want to see that shadow.
No.
Once I've got questions on patrol leader and lightless passage. Okay, what shadow on patrol leader says, shadow, cancel all damage dealt to this enemy.
Okay.
The way I read that is, when the character attacks you, and this gets revealed as a shadow, if that enemy has any damage on it whatsoever, you just remove it.
No. It's from that point forward. So basically...
Well, is it?
Yeah, because it hasn't been...
I find that really confusing, the wording.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I understand it is confusing, but...
Can I stop you before you answer?
Yeah, go on.
And I'll tell you for why.
Go on.
Because, just in case you get mixed up with another, there's lightless passage. Okay, and that shadow says, cancel all combat damage dealt to attacking enemy.
Yeah, now that one... Right, let's deal with these in reverse order. So there is a difference between direct damage and combat damage. So if you sneak attack Gandalf in and you do 4 damage to an enemy, that wouldn't be combat damage. It would be direct damage. He hasn't been involved in combat.
Okay. All
But-
right. Okay, I think I get it. So what confused me about this is it doesn't say remove, it says cancel.
Yeah.
So basically, as long as that shadow card is sitting there revealed next to the enemy, that effect's constant and in play.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, okay, fine. So if somebody's got the patrol leader one, says cancel damage to the enemy. So until the end of the round where you actually get rid of a shadow card,
Absolutely.
all the way up to that point, any damage that goes on him is cancelled.
Yeah. All damage.
Yeah, all damage. Whereas if it's the lightless passage one, which is cancel all combat damage, which is exactly like you say, if you attack that enemy, there's no point attacking him because it's going to get cancelled, but you could still Gandalf him or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because that wouldn't technically be combat damage, it would be direct damage.
Okay, cool. Because that did confuse me. The first time I played because I saw the patrol leader one first, and I just removed all the damage that was on the enemy.
Yeah, no, you made it harder for yourself. So that sort of balances
out.
He
didn't have any damage on him at that point.
Okay, but you did remove it.
It was fine.
Anyway.
I thought,
you did remove it.
Yeah, there just wasn't any. But I didn't cancel anything. But I did stick in my head of it. Why does it say cancel? Yeah. And then the penny that dropped with me, and maybe some other listeners might have gone through this as well, is it's while that's sitting there on top of or next to your enemy, it's just a constant effect.
Absolutely,
cancels.
yeah. Once you turn over those shadow cards, that shadow effect is in play until you clean up, basically, or the enemy is destroyed.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way to look at it. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, that was fun and shambolic.
Yeah. But
we'll put that in the show notes.
Fun and shambolic. I think that's not just this show, is it?
No, but I actually really enjoyed getting my teeth into this first quest of the new cycle. It was totally thematic. I really enjoyed seeing a whole swathe of new encounter cards. It didn't seem like there were that many different new ones when playing it through. There was a lot of the same enemies coming at me, but that really felt very thematic of going through the dark of Moria and these goblins being in the shadows there, and I loved using the cave torch. I loved the locations. Going back to the beginning of the cast where you mentioned how you liked quest card 1, where it really said, right, we're going to have to go through this route, and on the way you might get a bit lost. There are locations that can sort of send you the wrong way, but I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. When I first played this, so I'd obviously spent a lot of time playing the core set and really getting to know those quests, and same thing with the first cycle, and it was all themed around Mirkwood and forests, and I loved the sense that it was really, you were just in Lord of the Rings world. You were there, but it just had this real light touches of what the story is, just enough story that you could fill all the rest of it in for your imagination.
Yeah.
And I love that. That's maybe the number one thing I like about this game. And the first time I played the Khazad-dûm cycle, generally, I'd say, was that I thought it was a bit, well, you've suddenly gone from that into something you really recognise from Lord of the Rings. Like, it's I guess in terms of mental imagery, one of the strongest bits of the whole book, I'd say.
Yeah.
And part of me was actually a bit looking forward to getting through Khazad-dûm and getting to the cycle, actually. And I don't think I gave it enough time that first time around to really take time and get to know it, which you advised me to do, actually. You said, don't just rush through the AP. Well, you said, like as you always do it however you want. It's not to me, but my advice would be just take your time, just like you did with the core set. But I didn't do that. And I kind of just rushed through it. And then I greatly enjoyed the cycle, but obviously we'll talk about the cycle in the future. Coming back to play it now, I've really, really enjoyed this quest, just like your good self. I love the theming of it. I don't think it does actually tie itself too much to Lord of the Rings, say. It's just beautifully themed, like you say. It works really well as a quest. And I must have played this maybe 11 or 12 times before doing this, over the last maybe 3 weeks. I really enjoyed it every time. And sometimes I came a cropper quite quickly, like I described earlier. I think a lot of the times I did complete it. So it's not the most difficult quest out there, but there's no gimme at all. I don't think any of them are really, but just really enjoyed it. And the other interesting thing about this quest, I thought, was sometimes you could get kind of stuck, and it could take a while for it to get going. But other times it kind of just flowed really nicely. You really felt like you were racing through Moria, battling things and running away. And when it worked like that, I think that works just as well. So sometimes you can kind of get lost in the mines, and sometimes you're just running through there. And each way, it just works really well, I think. So my mind on this just got flipped completely. I've really, really loved playing this. And especially I love playing with a dwarf deck, and I probably will play it again with the deck I used the first time round to complete it. Yeah. And I've got to give a shout out to 2 expensive dwarf allies who really helped me on this quest. One of them is Longbeard Orcslayer.
Oh yeah, I put him in and took him out. As in, I didn't even start playing. I put him in, and I looked at him and I went, "Yeah, how many orcs are there going to be in Khazad-dûm?"
He'd be, yeah, exactly. So this guy, so just a reminder, he costs 4. It really I had Gloin and Dane, so 2 leadership heroes, just leadership ally. But you really do need a Steward of Gondor to be able to justify, because you've got more than one of these guys in your deck. But he has the response where you put him into play, you deal 1 damage to every orc enemy in play. That was a really useful.
See, now you say it out loud, I really should have kept him in.
Yeah, and the other one, who I used, again, was very reliant on the Steward of Gondor.
Don't say it.
Shall I not say it? It's a dwarf with a pipe, is what I'll say. And I've come round on this guy. I'm actually a fan. And I even didn't use him when a hero fell. I'd literally just paid for 6 to get out, I'm going to say it, to get out our old chum, Brock Ironfist. Good on you, Brock. Good on you. Good to see you again.
I mean, he's pretty tough, isn't he? I mean, I've literally never played him, but he is pretty tough, isn't he?
He quests for 2, he hits for 2. He's got 4 hit points. You got Day and Ironfoot out there. This guy's killer.
He only hits for 2. He's rubbish, man. Although, I tell you what, I thought what you were going to say is you kept Brock in case you got a sudden pitfall.
Well, actually, that was the thinking, to be honest. The thinking was, have Brock there in case one of your heroes falls, but he was never in my hand when I lost a hero. Obviously, that's always the way it's going to be.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah. But anyway, I only said that whole thing just so I could mention Brock.
Yeah, I know, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, where's this monologue going?
Yeah.
Oh, to Brock.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, I put together a sort of a dwarf deck. I mean, I've touched on some of the sort of main components on it earlier, and I don't think I'm going to delve into it now because I think actually I'm going to probably keep this deck as it is going into the next quest. So I think, pretty much used a lot of the cards we discussed last week to build a pretty solid Tri-Sphere deck. And actually, I will mention that this was the first Tri-Sphere deck I've put together since we started doing the podcast. And really, that's all down to Biffa, actually. So just revisiting Biffa last week and realizing that I could get some really nice resource smoothing with Biffa and the Riverdale Minstrel and just one song sort of really allowed me to put together this Tri-Sphere dwarf deck. And it worked really well. I mean, I also think this is not that difficult a quest. I mean, what was it rated at as 5?
Yeah. It's probably not far off, is it?
That's not far off. Yeah, I would say a 5 is pretty accurate. I mean, I think I played it 5 times and I think I only lost once. And that was actually I was going to say that was actually only due to really bad card draw. But actually, isn't that the nature of the game? But for some reason, I played something ridiculous like 5 or 6 rounds and didn't see a single ally in my hand, and it was just eventually I couldn't continue. And I don't think that is a fair representation of my deck. I mean, that was the only time. I mean, sometimes you go, I had 4 allies in my deck and I didn't see a single one. Then again, that's on me then, but this time is not the case. So yeah, I don't feel the need to sort of dive into the deck at this stage, but I would say I'm looking forward to taking them into the next quest.
Yeah, and I'm going to do exactly the same. I think just keep the same deck, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing Brock Ironfist again.
Yeah, I want to hear the tales of Brock. I want to see this whole deluxe expansion written out and named The Trials of Brock.
God, I'm trying my best to justify all this. I've only got one of him in my deck, by the way.
Okay. That was justification number 1.
Yeah, correct.
All right. Well, this has turned into quite. I actually thought this might actually be quite as short.
I thought that initially, but then I thought, you know what? This is the first one of a new deluxe.
Yeah,
we've got to discuss all of that stuff. We've got to talk about all these stuff at the beginning of the inset sheet and all of that. So, and it's all new cards. So I think, I think the first episode of any deluxe is always going to be a long one, I think.
Yeah,
because it's like it's like the first core set.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the only core set.
Yeah, the first. You know what I mean? The first core set episode.
Yes.
Yeah, first quest in the core set. That's what I
meant. Okay, so we won't hang around much longer. So let's wrap this up and go away and play the next quest. So unless you have any more to say about this one, I think we'll just we'll wrap it up now.
Yep, the next one being the 7th level.
7th level. Oh, well, that's where we're heading.
We're heading to the 7th level.
That's what it said. So on quest card 3B, we're heading to the 7th level.
That's right. Because that's where the Chamber of Records is.
That's right. Yeah, I've got the Arable Record Keeper.
There you go. Look, we got this thing nailed. We got it nailed.
Okay, so, but if you do want to get in touch with us before then, there are a few ways you can do it. You can get in touch with us directly via email, which is latertherings@gmail.com. You can contact us on Twitter, which is @latertherings. And you can contact us on the Board Game Geek thread, which, as ever, there will be a link to in the show notes. So, with that, all it leaves me to say is thanks once again for listening. Thanks for a brilliant first year. And until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.